going back to Liquid Death, I mean, the packaging as a whole, like the can, that's the brand.
Yeah.
Like they have all the protection in the world.
Yeah.
Because
and it's just water.
it's just water.
Yeah.
It's the can itself. So
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into branding and marketing to actually protect your idea. That's the foundation.
We help people with ideas get them to revenue.
Welcome to the Pitch to Product podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Norm.
And on today's episode, we're going to be discussing with you all the things to consider before starting your product-based business.
And there really are just so many steps that go into it. But the accelerator program, really what we call those steps to get to market.
Yeah.
We get there as efficiently as possible.
Right.
We have people in every segment that will work on your product, will get it on market. And for us, this is just kind of another weekday around our campus.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our co-founder Peter, he famously says, what you'd pull your hair out over is, a regular Thursday morning for us. Mm-hmm. And 52 Launch, we call that accelerator program Norm and I, we refer to that as your turnkey solution to bring this product to market, right? Without taking stake, profit, or equity. And just being a manufacturer, we want to align ourselves with the best ideas and the best products, which really leads into finding out what the product viability is, right?
It's so important.
It is so important because at the end of the day, if it's a crazy, outlandish idea, nobody can manufacture it, maybe the technology's not even here yet, right? Then they'll be less likely of a chance to do.
Well, you got to really re-educate your consumer base,
100%.
Which is, I think, the hardest part about coming up with a product that you really want to change the industry on. I always say, and I know you always hear it, right? We're looking for a product that's going to take a slice of the market, not completely flip an industry on its head. Because essentially, marketing and branding is so incredibly important. And that will really gauge market viability. And this is what we talk to the team every single day. We're really looking at like competitors, what they're selling at, what their marketing and branding strategy is. Because in reality, when you come and you book a call with us, you may think that you found us. In reality, our marketing and branding team went and found you.
Yeah, and they're really good at what they do. And just to kind of add to that point, right? The products they're really a nice to have or a need to have.
Yeah.
Right. So you're either going to in terms of the view, like how is the consumer going to view this, right? These are the conversations that we're having with you and figuring out like, is this just kind of a nice to have? Do you go on Amazon? Is this an impulse buy?
Is it going to make your life better?
Is it going to make your life better? 100%. And our co-founder, Peter, I'll refer to him again. He always says it's either an R&D product, so rip off and duplicate, or what I like to say is that Venn diagram, right? You're taking, factors from two different products, you're combining them to make your new product, right? Because the story of the entrepreneurship, and we know this very, very well, is, one day they were looking for a product and they couldn't find it, and then the first step is they go on Amazon. The next step is they go on Google, and they're thinking to themselves, well, why doesn't this product exist? It just seems so simple. I mean, I've heard the story 1,000 times. Like it's literally, maybe some sort of modified trash bag system or a modified kitchen utensil or something along those lines.
Well, I think our favorite client is the one that comes to the meeting with some contraption that they made in
100%,
the basement, right?
yeah.
So that's part of the fun is really seeing in their mind, what does the product look like? How is it working right now? Obviously, it's a real proof of concept. It's not even a prototype at this point. No. But it really gives us the ability to take a deeper look into what's going on in their mind when they came up with the idea, right?
Yeah.
And then we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, and honestly, seeing that from an internal perspective, seeing how much work they've put in,
right?
Not just a bar napkin, although we can work with, and we've spoken with plenty of people who have drawn out their ideas on a bar napkin. Seeing that seeing it in the physical is really, really helpful, not just to us to kind of help visualize and help see what that market's going to eventually look like for you, but it also helps out the design team.
Absolutely.
Right? Being able to turn this into a manufacturable product, which at the end of the day is absolutely paramount because now we're talking margins, now we're talking retail price, and if you can't be profitable, and if you can't be competitively priced, right, and you don't have a large target market to sell to, you'll never scale your business, right? You need those three factors. when you're going to start your product-based business, right?
100%. And, kind of leading into who actually is going to buy the product as a whole, right? What are we really looking for, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to a target market?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the size is very, very an important factor.
Yeah.
I also think just like studying the consumers, because certain consumers in certain spaces are like, it's almost like a religion,
Yeah.
right? They're so dedicated to that space. For example, like we're both golfers, right? The golf space is an excellent space to be in, right? I love spending money, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and I always have to.
It hurts his pocketbook.
Hurts my pocketbook, but I always have to buy more golf balls.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
And it's,
Don't I know it?
and it's just one of those things where
Yeah.
it's, I'm always buying the golf balls, or a lot of my friends are buying the training aids, and the golfer will always spend money on that new piece of tech, right? To help out their game. Maybe get their handicap a little bit lower, right?
Yeah.
Similar to the baby space as well, where it's like you almost want to see if like some of these spaces, like a liquid death space, is like they're almost like a cult, right?
I know.
And there's just like once you get them in, and you tell that story, and you tell that brand, as long as you keep just sending that email, you keep pushing out media, you've got those buyers.
You almost want a niche market to start with.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds, a little weird, and it all obviously sounds a little weird to the client when we're talking to them. We're kind of going back and forth over the phone. But you want to grow from there. You want to find people that are going to be religious to the brand, just like you said, and grow with you. Because, obviously we're here to crawl, walk, run the product, into a fully fledged company, but different product lines can expand your audience.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a great segue kind of in our next point, right? With the competitor analysis, right? Because I always tell people, even with not necessarily the Venn diagram products, but more so the rip-off and duplicates.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, that's excellent. If somebody else is you already know that you have a competitor, that's your sign that, hey, there's for sure profit in this, right? Because nobody else would start a business if they knew they were going to lose money, right? So that kind of wraps into that competitor analysis.
But it's that value proposition,
Exactly.
right? Because there's so many product development companies out there, but they're most likely third parties. They're going to put you in touch with a manufacturer, right? For us, we're here to see out every step of the way, and that's what makes us different. And that's why we'll come up with different keywords, right? We'll see what our competitors are putting out there, for product development keywords, but we're going to figure out how to differentiate ourselves. We do the exact same thing with the products that we take on, right? Because it's so incredibly important to take on the right products.
100%. I mean, and you and I both know this very well. I mean, the TikToks of the world, the Amazons of the world, even just selling on your Shopify it's almost so saturated, right? That you have to do quite a bit in order to stand out. And it's really about brand and storytelling, which I think is going to keep those customers coming back.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, you want to have a story, right? You want to have a story of, how you came to the product, where the product has taken you so far. Because at this point, we can't just be, storytellers. We have to actually sell the story.
100%. And, you'll never get there you'll never get people to buy if you don't have the right cost and the right retail price, right? So I love to actually, get an understanding for, because anybody can set any retail price, and I can tell you right now, if you're starting a business, you're going to be profitable. But if you're $1,000 over what your competitors are selling for, you're not going to have much in revenue, right?
Totally.
So talk to us a little bit about, how the manufacturing and design process also integrates within setting a pricing strategy. Ultimately, make sure it's going to be a fair price for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is wherever we get the product manufactured, right? It does set a standard, right? And again, we have plenty of clients that also manufacture in the United States. But we take a real deep look at what competitors and what the market looks like and where they're getting their product manufactured, so we can at least hold our own when it comes to competing in the marketplace, right? You do want a high quality product, and that's why over time you can really grow that way. Because Steve Jobs didn't come out with the iPhone 17, right? He came out with versions 1, 2, and 3, but he grew his way into that. But setting the retail price, you have to have a good understanding for what the cost of the product is, what the shipping is going to be, direct to consumer. In e-commerce, it's usually a times 5 rule. Right?
Yeah.
So if we're retailing it $25, we're making the product for 5.
Yeah.
So we really want to make up for all of that spend getting the product to the consumer, right? So we do bring it down to a science, and not every product is the same. But a lot of the times we have to have a very, very good understanding for what the marketplace looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't have any of that without, doing this research right now, which is one of the first things we do. I mean, we do an extremely, extremely in-depth market analysis, right? I mean, it's upwards of 20 pages of all the research that we do here, because we know it. And just like Norm said, you won't be successful. You can't sell product if we can't do this research right now.
Absolutely.
Right? By the time you enter the market, by the time you start selling, you're going to know that you're profitable. You're going to know what your margins are going to be like, and you're going to know exactly how to sell to the consumer, right? It's just one of the key staples, I think, of starting a product-based business.
Absolutely. So when we are actually designing and manufacturing the product, before all of that, are we asking the client, like, hey, have you tested your own prototype?
Yeah.
Have you given that a shot? Right?
Yeah.
I remember, being in these calls, and, there's some people that have that idea written on a napkin, but there's other people that come to us really prepared. Sometimes a little, way farther down the process than we thought they would be. And we always just have to pick them up where they're leaving off, right? So kind of talk to me about that process, because I know it's different from, somebody just pitching us an idea. At that point, they have a tangible product that they're looking to get manufactured.
Yeah, and the truth is, you said it perfectly, right? We're pick them up where they're at, right? And unfortunately, and we've seen this a lot, is people spend a lot of money with other organizations, other companies, and we're kind of like, okay, well, we need to make sure this is designed to manufacture, DFM, right? Built for the consumer, right? Because you can also design and manufacture something, but that doesn't necessarily, it's going to look nice to the consumer,
100%.
right? We're actually covering both of those bases in our process, and 99% of the times when we review CAD files and somebody's already done the work, we actually have to touch them up, right? Because the factory, if we give those CAD files right to the factory, then again, 99% of the times, there's tweaks to be made regardless, right? Even if it's quote unquote designed to manufacture from somebody else, right? We're actually, the advantage of working with 52 Launch is not only are we your manufacturer of record and your importer of record, right? So we're taking on some of that back end liability, right? But we're also working hand in hand with the factories that are best suited for your product, right? So there's no surprises when we send those CAD files to those manufacturers to get them produced. And ultimately, it's our FQC, a factory quality control team, making sure the product actually comes out good, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're shipping broken pieces to your customers, I mean, bad reviews will tank a business quicker than anything I've ever seen before.
You kind of do have to go 2 steps back before you go 1 step forward.
Yeah.
Which is, a lot for a lot of people to, it's a big pill to swallow for a lot of our clients. One other thing that I think a lot of people are super worried about, right? As soon as they talk to us, is, protecting their idea immediately, right? And obviously for us, if we were in the business of stealing ideas, frankly, we'd be out of business. Right? Whenever we're taking a look at bringing a product on, ultimately, 85% of the time, the client is so obsessed with getting their product patented. Talk to me about that process as a whole. When does it make sense? Why does it make sense? Sometimes does it make sense to put the money into the units before building the patent as a whole? Yeah. So let's just kind of break into that
down. Yeah. It's a great point, right? Because it's at the end of the day, the bare minimum, you got to have it before you hit the market. Before you actually sell your first product, from a legal perspective, that has to be done. I always tell people, because I've seen both sides, what I tell people is get it flushed out first, right? Not just from any old design agency, right? But make sure that it's designed to manufacture, right? So you don't have to pay the factory later to tweak your CAD files, but by a team that knows the consumer also, right? When you get both of those, right? Much to your point of going 2 steps backward in order to go a couple steps ahead, it's just absolutely key in the whole product development process, where we're making sure this is going to be a good product, right? We're thinking about how the consumer is going to interact with it. And then once you actually get that design, then is an excellent time to work with our vast network of patent attorneys across the nation, because the claims based off of those designs, that's essentially what the judge looks at if you go to sue somebody in court, if you have some sort of infringement, right? I hope you don't, but in that event, and if those claims don't match up to the actual physical design because your design's changed so many times,
Right.
You're kind of out of a court case, and that competitor that's copying you, they're stealing market share at the same time, right? So not only are you spending money, you're losing money on lawyers and all this other stuff. You've lost a court case. You have a pretty big competitor, right? Stealing all that market share. And just like you said earlier, our goal here, we want to take a slice of the market.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is I always tell people, until Elon Musk develops that mind reading device that I always tell people, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, then as good as your idea is, and I don't want to hurt any feelings here, you don't have much to protect.
Right.
Right. Let's get that into the physical. Let's get that into reality. Flush it out by a team of experts that have decades of experience, and then we can work to patent it.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to build the foundation or, build the moat around the idea. That's how you're going to protect the product, how you protect the company. And again, we're not anti-protection either. We're really through cost-effective protection, which is through trademarking and licensing. I always say, whenever our client is super worried about this, right? If you are, prepared to get the patent, you should also be prepared to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars in court protecting your idea. Ultimately, if that's the direction that you go in, obviously somebody out there is going to copy you, right? Competition is good. Dominance is that much better. And that's what we're incredibly good here at doing, is creating a dominant product in the market. Yeah.
Extremely, extremely well said. I mean, I think that just highlights the importance of ultimately being a salesperson for your company, right? And building and taking that branding and that marketing, because protection is great, right? But if there are 10 ways to build your product profitably, right? Your patent actually only protects one of them. So there's still 9 ways to produce this product that are still on the table for me if I'm going to be your competitor.
100%.
Right? And a lot of people actually get kind of confused in that, where they're just saying, oh yeah, like as long as I have the patent, I'm good. No one can steal my product. Well, I could hire a team of designers to make a like product, right? Now I'm not. Now you can't sue me, and I'm going to take market share, right? Which kind of goes into our next point, which is branding and strategy, right? And building that marketing, right? Being the dominant leader in your industry, right? You want to be the Apple. Apple's so good at advertising, at branding, or like a Liquid Death, right? Where you build a community around this. I mean, like, that's ultimately the key, and getting your brand in front of enough eyeballs, right? I always tell people, this is a bit of an exaggeration on my part, but when you first sell, regardless of how good your product is, you got to show it to 5,000 eyeballs before you get one product sold. That's the mentality that you want to be as CEO. It's a very, very aggressive mindset. And obviously that number is going to go down as time, and hopefully you become a household name in a number of years.
Yeah. But going back to Liquid Death, I mean, the packaging as a whole, the can, that's the brand.
Yeah.
Like they have all the protection in the world.
Yeah.
Because
and it's just water.
It's just water.
Yeah.
It's the can itself. So there's so much that goes into branding and marketing to actually protect your idea. That's the foundation.
Right.
And e-commerce, again, 30 years ago, patent really stood for something.
Yeah.
We're just in a completely different day and age now. In 2025, right? This rip-off and duplicate age. Again, you want to be that dominant figure in the market. Somebody is going to come along. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, and how you become that, I think, really starts from organic.
Yep.
Right. Organic growth, which means essentially everything that's not paid advertising. You oftentimes pay a premium on the sites like TikTok Shop or Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, or even like a Google Shop, right? Because even within Google, there's Google Ads, and then there's Google Shop, and then you can advertise on the regular Google platform. So there's 3 different places to spend a ton of money, right? And maybe see great results, maybe not, right? Depending on the advertising strategy that you go with. But it's really about building up that organic base, right? Having the blog articles that support, right? Because you want the Google algorithm to read through your website, see all these blog posts, and think and make Google think like, okay, Norm's brand is clearly the thought leader. I'm going to rank Norm's really, really well, right?
Yeah.
And then your returns when you go to advertise, actually like it scales like 10x. Like the returns you see are crazy.
And then, while you're selling and when you're selling, you have, these certain platforms like, Amazon, Etsy, Shopify, even Facebook, Instagram Shop, TikTok Shop. It's so much for the client, right? How do we kind of get a good understanding for where they should sell? It's really based on the product. Yeah,
no, it is. And it really goes down to like the, we call them archetypes here at 52 Launch, right? It's kind of the summary of the 2 to 3 people that are going to buy, right? So for me, for example, I am starting my own men's skincare brand, right? And I have, my archetypes, one of them could be the 18 to 22-year-old that's in college but wants to take care of themselves. Maybe it's the older professional. Maybe it's the 28 to 35-year-old. Or maybe my third archetype is just the older, the dad who's, getting closer to retirement, wants to take care of himself. And those archetypes are going to build the framework for the advertising strategy, for the brand strategy, and ultimately how you talk to consumer. Because those 3 people, those 3 archetypes, those are where you're going to find your paying customers, right?
Skin looks amazing, by the way. I mean, I knew.
Oh my gosh!
I knew you were doing something.
Oh yeah, I am beef tallow. Beef tallow. Yeah, it's excellent, and I appreciate that.
You get a moment, you can really pitch your product.
Yeah,
excellent, man.
Yeah.
As far as just like crowdfunding, I know that this is a big deal for a lot of clients because nobody's calling us with Rockefeller last name.
Definitely not.
As far as getting your product on the market, there's a series, of different ways that we can do it, right? Obviously, I always say friends and family is the best way to go. But they're really not going to invest in something unless they see tangibles, right? It's so much easier to say, hey, I believe in this product. I really think that this is going to work. And you're working with a team like us who is delivering tangibles on a regular basis than saying, oh, hey, I have this idea written down on a napkin. Do you think you could help me out with it, right? Because it's not real then. It's real when we deliver tangibles. So I guess let's have a conversation about discovering people that can actually invest in your product.
Yeah, I mean, I think to much your point, I think there's a lot of different options out there. I mean, frankly, the U.S. economy is built around the investor, right? That's how you make money. That's how you build real wealth in this country. And you can go crowdfunding, or Kickstarter, and we actually started on a Kickstarter 10 years ago, coming up actually now in 11. But it wasn't that saturated at the time, right? It's almost like way too saturated now. And again, I'll reference Peter here. He says, you spend $500,000 in advertising to raise 100, right? I mean, you and I spoke with someone who she raised $7,500 via Kickstarter, but had to pay out $3,400. Right. So there's not much. There wasn't nearly enough after of actual cash to put into the or what she needed to put into that product. But I mean, the Kickstarter, those fees will kill you, right? It's pretty saturated. Friends and family is an excellent option. I also like to see business lines of credit. You can actually stack business credit cards as well.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, and get 0% for like 9 to 18 months, depending on where you go. Actually, so there are some options if friends and family are not a feasible option for you. But that's ultimately key. And to much what you brought up earlier, those tangibles, right? Everything that you through the accelerator program, we actually give you formally all of the answers in one cohesive spot. And we actually call that the bridge meeting, right? So the bridge meeting is what I refer to as your business 101 workshop, but it's also, we're discussing what those out-of-pocket costs will look like. Okay, what's your inventory going to look like, right? What's your suggested retail price going to look like? We're also talking about margins, right? What does a more passive marketing strategy look like? And what's a more aggressive marketing strategy look like, right? We're going to map out that break-even point with you, right? Because at the end of the day, we're a manufacturing company. So we actually, we want you to sell the same, if not more than you do, right? Because at the end of the day, what Norm and I want to see is we want to see everyone come back in 2-3 years and say, hey, I need a production order of 100,000 units, right? These things are selling like hotcakes because I've been advertising them like hotcakes.
Or I have another product line that I want to come out with.
100%.
So there's really so much that we can do here.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, we have a number of products that are in market now that have scaled not only in revenue, but also scaled in the product line that they can offer, right? You want to be able to build around that brand, right? I mean, like, for example, Liquid Death. I mean, it's just canned water.
I know.
But they have a bunch of different products that they can sell, right? A bunch of different points to get that revenue, right? I mean,
they just started out with that first seltzer. So it's really incredible what they've been able to do.
It really, really is. And that ultimately goes into kind of the next phase, right? So once you hit the market and you're selling product, right? Maybe you haven't expanded to product numbers 2, 3, 4 yet, but you want to get feedback from the market, right? Because ultimately, bad and good reviews are king. And, the bad ones will sink a ship quicker than you and I know, right?
Absolutely.
So, kind of talk to us about, what's that testing and feedback look like from the consumer standpoint? And then as CEO of a business, how do you actually adjust?
Yeah, that's a great question. Quite honestly, every time we take a look at a product, it's not cookie cutter, right? The way that we go about bringing it to market, may be completely different from, another client's product. Yeah. So there is a certain way to do this, which we've seen, where you start with Instagram and Facebook ads. Have a very, very good understanding for who is buying it, what reviews are coming in, and then, down the road, you actually have the ability to import those reviews into Google SEO. So what we really want to do, and Google SEO, when I say SEO, I mean search engine optimization. So when you take a look online, you look up, product development companies. That's why we come up with a sponsored ad, right? Yeah. That is exactly what we're doing with other products and alternate products. So obviously, if you have a competitor that is out there and they have 250 reviews and yours has 10 on Google SEO, which one are they going to buy? Obviously the one with 250 reviews. Yeah. So the bottom line is you want to crawl, walk, and run your way into having a product out there that can actually compete with your competitors. Yeah. So over time, what we do is see what needs to be changed with the product design, if anything. But as you're using that marketing and branding strategy, you utilize the great reviews to import them into Google SEO.
Oh, 100%. And it also goes to a good point that it's not to say that we're building bad products over here, right? It's you should expect to, as CEO, this is a molding process.
You got to pivot.
You got to be able to pivot, and we have the best in class in terms of designers, engineers under the roof that we have over here at 52 Launch, and we're answering all those tough questions. But ultimately, as time goes on, you are going to need to pivot. You are going to need to make, version 2. I mean, for example, one of our own products, Shoot 21, the idea that came in originally with the client is not what we now sell in the marketplace, right? And then they started selling. They wanted consumers wanted a glow in the dark version, right? So Shoot 21 actually now sells a glow in the dark version of their product, right? It's part of the process of being CEO, being able to pivot, and that's not a bad thing, right? You want people telling you what they think is oftentimes a good thing. Obviously, you want more good than bad, but as you grow and scale, this is only natural. It's only part of the process.
Absolutely. And I know we're talking about growing the product and getting the product on the market. Let's just talk about scalability as a whole. As we're growing and as we're getting larger and larger and larger, can we truly scale and grow to diversify the portfolio?
100%. I think we can. Yeah. I think, 52 Launch, I've never been more proud of an organization because we're growing, first and foremost, very, very quickly. But also on the consumer side, doing all the steps in the accelerator are absolutely, it's like the concrete foundation to your house. You'll never build a nice house with 3 stories and a bunch of bedrooms and 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet if you don't have the solid foundation first.
So true.
Right. And frankly, and to be quite honest with you, you could scale to, you could just stick with meta advertising and just do SEO. And a lot of that's what a lot of e-commerce brands do. They never hop on Amazon or they never hop on TikTok Shop, and they're in the 6, 7, 8 figure range, right? In terms of revenue, just on meta alone, right? So I think scalability is absolutely impactful, but if we don't set you up the right way on day one, we'll never get there.
So obviously, we discussed a lot,
Yeah.
right? But the bottom line is it's a ton of information, and you shouldn't be expected to know everything. We always say, fire yourself from the jobs you're just not good at, right? This is where we come in. This is why we exist. We want to create a product that we're both really proud of, but we cannot do that without taking proper steps to get you there, right? It's this business about just getting to market as quick as possible. Some people want to get on market in 3 to 5 months. That's just not going to happen, right? You need to take the proper steps to be incredibly proud of your product. So this is why the Accelerator program exists.
Yeah, and this is exactly why our co-founders put this together. And I hope everyone found this conversation as insightful as I did. Once again, thank you for listening or watching wherever you are. My name's Aaron.
And I'm Norm. And if you have a product idea that you're incredibly proud of and you're looking to get it off your chest, go to the show notes, book a call with Aaron or I, and let's hear your product.